Hi, and welcome to an episode of the JetRails podcast. I'm Robert Rand, your host for the day. I'm joined by a couple members of the team at Klickly. We're going to be talking with you about why digital marketing has struggled to offer pay-for-performance options. And I had the pleasure of meeting Cooper, the founder at Klickly, a few weeks back at Meet Magento, New York, and was intrigued by what their team was doing and some of the history there. And we have Darren here with us as well from the Klickly team. So with no further ado, Cooper, Darren, would you mind introducing yourselves?
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Appreciate it. No, thank you. No, we're really excited to be here and to join you. I have to say, it was so much fun geeking out at Meet Magento from a technical angle. So I'm glad we're actually getting to do this officially now. I'm the CEO and the founder of Klickly. It's my second company. What else about me? I was formerly in a very different walk of life, an actor in a number of TV shows and films. But, I got the entrepreneurial bug about 4 years in and was on a fairly significant show. Got bored and got into tech. So tech is kind of my passion now. And I hope in the course of my life to start a bunch of companies. And so right now we're in the midst of Klickly, headquartered here in California, and really enjoying it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you get any SAG credit for being on the podcast today, but
Is this union, Robert? Is this a union show?
Yeah, no, sorry.
That's all right. My membership expired ages ago. Haven't touched it in a while.
Oh, shucks. Closest I ever got was in college. I was a background actor in one of the Spider-Man films. I got to be an extra.
That's cool.
So got to meet everyone on the cast and all. That was a lot of fun. And I, like you, learned that wasn't what I was going to do the rest of my life. Although I may have figured it out pretty quickly.
Yes, exactly. That's funny.
Well, cool. I'm Darren, Director of Accounts over at Klickly. Essentially oversee sales, partnerships, or any of our live brand accounts. I guess a little bit about me. I took an interesting turn right out of college. I was able to open up a restaurant with some friends, and it's still open and successful. And there's 3 other spots, so that's kind of usually a good sign in the restaurant industry.
Yeah. Wow, yeah, that you've defied all the odds on that.
Yeah, but at the age of 24, I quickly realized that my friends and family and everybody else were completely 180 and having weekends and nights and all that stuff. And I really loved the digital aspect of it. So I got into the agency side of things early in my career, and then kind of worked my way through a lot of large agencies doing integrated strategy. Did a little bit in the affiliate space as well, running my own agency, and then found the lovely Cooper and got very excited at what they're doing over here. And here we are. Very excited.
Yeah. Well, now I know where we're meeting next time I head to California, though. It's not at your offices. You've got 4 restaurants, right?
Yeah, we have good options there, right?
Yeah.
So we got seriously lucky to get Darren. He came out of one of my favorite agencies in LA called W Promote, which actually Bob is on Bob Schwartz, of course, a big Magento figure.
Absolutely.
Is on there, and is heavily involved with them. And Mike Mother over there is fantastic.
Yeah.
So we were lucky to have Darren have that background and then be at Klickly now.
Yeah, I got to catch Bob Schwartz out at Magento Imagine this year. He was speaking at an event that was being hosted at NS8's headquarters, just off the strip. Very convenient for an event, and he was as great as ever. So the team at W Promote's lucky to have him involved, and it's been great watching W Promote grow through the years. That back in my brand marketing days, that we saw them as a serious contender for anyone in the digital marketing space.
Yeah,
nice. Yep.
So and I know that our team was often speaking side by side on panels and other places with their team, and certainly, really amazing stuff. So, Darren, that's interesting on that background.
Amazing company, really great guys over there.
Yeah, and Cooper, I have to ask. So, it's your second company. What was the first one doing?
It was actually more in the agency-ish space, but combining a lot of analytics and data. So we basically would create branded content. So think commercials or short form story, digital episodic content. And then we would use a lot of data and analytics to predict who would engage with it and how much. So we were trying to help large companies. We would sell those branded content pieces to companies like Kimberly-Clark, Post-it Notes, parent company 3M, very large, perhaps a little bit legacy companies that were very committed to and excited about millennials. So it's like, how do we engage better with millennials? And that's what we help them do.
That is interesting. Teaching grandma and grandpa to work with millennials.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah. No, there's nothing wrong with that. I think that one of the biggest challenges that the e-commerce industry has been facing in recent years has been taking not just the retailers, into the digital age, but the wholesalers, the distributors, the manufacturers, these brands, these B2B organizations that, they're still taking fax and phone orders, and they're still relying on writing up orders at trade shows. And it's just such a different paradigm, and every customer's got different rates and different shipping agreements and different everything. And, bringing that into a digital world, the complexity is unique, all the net terms. And so a lot of that to go around. And I think that some of those are the best projects. It's, where folks really can, there's a lot of revenue. There's a lot of, a lot of product. There's a lot of everything to go around. It's just a matter of modernizing. So,
right.
Yep. Yeah. And what we realized was that by combining really strong storytelling with really good data, we were able to just exponentially increase what they were able to do, their ability to speak to a certain demographic, et cetera. So it was a ton of fun. It was actually good, very good, I'd say a good preamble for Klickly and what we're doing now.
Very cool. So speaking of history, getting a little bit into our topic for the day, what does the traditional digital marketing landscape look like over the last decade, in your opinion? What, when you started this new company, what were you looking at as the legacy of the internet marketing space as it is?
Well, so just kind of at the most macro level, we would watch, this is a very personal and anecdotal experience, but I would watch my friends who started big, large companies, think Dollar Shave and the like, right? I would watch them initially not always back out their advertising in a way that they were happy with, right? High CPAs, throttling algorithms, all this stuff was happening. And some brands, not Dollar Shave, but others would lose huge amounts of money in very short periods of time. This is when I was more on the content creation and agency side. And I remember just sitting there thinking, like, what a business model. An advertising platform, they just have to sit there, say, hey, give me a lot of money up front, and like, let's see what I can do. Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't, but like, pay me. And that business model struck me as one, brilliant, but I would never get away with it, right? Like, it's absurd in a way.
Yeah, it's basically, it's a gambling hall of one sort or another. It's a casino. You're going to put some money in the machine, and maybe you win, maybe you don't. Either way, this beautiful casino is cashing in. The house always wins.
Well, that's so true. And so I kind of, at the most macro level, we saw a lot of other things, which Darren can talk to in more detail, but, looking at the fraud and everything that was happening, we're just like, it would be cool. What if we could take data and tech and actually make a platform that was more aligned with the brands? Now, I am not going to sit here and say, I'm very biased, right? So I'm not going to say Klickly is the best thing ever, but like, we're trying to get pretty close. We've really flipped the model on its head. We are paid for performance, like purely commission based. And so we've really tried to create that thrust of being, aligned with the brands. We only make money when you do. Contrasting to, with a very specific goal to contrast to what the industry used to look like, and in some cases still does.
Yeah,
Darren's the expert on, of course, that space given his
it still does, right? It's still the industry standard. People are still familiar with the big guys, the Googles, the Facebooks, right? It's something that you still need to go to. Absolutely, it has visibility, but it's expensive, and especially in a time where, to be honest, money is easy to get. With some great companies or VCs or whatever it may be, you still have companies and brands that can come in and, no matter what the costs, make sure that they win. So you could have an amazing company, an amazing brand, an amazing story, but somebody else can come in and say, oh, I don't care, I'll pay as much as I need for that click and that traffic.
So they saturate the market because they can, and then it's not a meritocracy. A great brand isn't getting the visibility they perhaps deserve because someone has more money.
Yeah. Well, and if you look at the progression of it, when I started working with e-commerce sites or with websites in general and digital marketing, we're going back, a good dozen years to when I really broke into the industry. And it was a different time. You could rank in Google pretty easily because the competition wasn't there. And if you knew and not enough people were savvy to SEO. And so the time it took and the resource it took to get the job done was relatively light. Now, it's a much different uphill battle. The same goes when it comes to things like AdWords, that yes, there are things that have changed on the Google side that, Google ads can afford to charge a premium. They're not afraid of where else you're going to go. They've won the market. There is a bit of a monopoly there in that sense for, organic search engine or paid search engine, in this case, results. But I think just as interestingly, it's the competition because it's an auction system. You're bidding against others. And so with all these other people bidding you up, just what you've described. So you go through this one after the other, and a lot of the traditionally available opportunities, they've become expensive. They become time consuming, resource wise. So it's not that you want to give them up, or it's not that you don't want to pay attention to them, but it's hard to get the same kind of ROI that you would have when, you weren't competing in the same way in general, even for then, for comparison shopping that, now you're competing against Amazon in a different way and lots of other places.
Well, let's be real. Everyone is competing against Amazon always.
Absolutely. It's your point, Robert. It's, in the olden days, let's say, it's really not that long ago. I think 10, 12 years ago. Right.
Yeah.
But, SEO, right. It's free. It's still important. I don't think it should be ignored, but by all means, Google's smart. And the search engine results page, there's not much real estate, even if you have the number 1, number 2 ranking as it relates to organic. There's shopping, there's the paid search ads. If you look at the top amount, all of that is paid now. Right. So while organic is still important and it is free and it's great, mostly it's paid. Right.
Yeah. And the other thing that I want to mention too, just as an interesting side note on this, how the industry has changed, is as there have become more and more advances in technology, more and more, let's say, ad tech companies have grown up. And we actually don't consider ourselves ad tech. We're more data and commerce. But I will say you'll see the rise of fraud, bots, low quality human traffic, which means non-human. It means, these are actually automated bots that have been programmed to run and pretend like they're looking at your ads and clicking on them, and it's not happening. And that's just rampant right now. So where in the past that wasn't really the case, it's gotten more and more and more over time because more and more of these advertising companies out there benefit from it.
Yeah.
And again, that's to contrast with Klickly. That's literally why we exist, is to be the opposite. It's that, while you'll have seen this, and I won't call out any specific agencies, but there are agencies out there, none we work with, but that have a incentive to, at the end of the month, these are marketing agencies. So if they have a budget of $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 and they haven't spent it all, well, guess what happens? They go and buy a huge amount of traffic to spend the money. Otherwise they have to give back. And it's incentivizing for them to buy low quality traffic and really cheap remnant. But guess what? The people who view that inventory online, that digital space that you're buying, they're not purchasers, or they're not even people.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want to build a company where we made money doing that, because obviously Klickly, we only make money if the person actually buys something. So we really have to avoid that situation. So it's kind of an interesting way to think of it.
Yeah. There, I know companies like NS8, they're getting 2 plugs today for, right? But that help to block some of the ad fraud. It's become a real issue, especially, for folks that are running various display ads and such. It is interesting watching the increase in those things. But at the same time, I think everyone's always wanted a pay for performance model, that having come from the agency side, everyone wanted that. We did have some customers that we would allow to pay us by the lead that we generated or some other metric because they were big enough, there was enough on the table. We knew that we'd perform and we were willing to put our money where our mouth was to an extent, but they were still paying for, let's say, the ad spend or for some portion themselves. There might have been a few where we did the SEO and, pay for performance again, because we felt confident in what we were going to achieve there. But that's the exception to the rule, that as an agency, you've got to make payroll. People are basically, in one way or another, they're getting expertise from you the same way that when they get an accountant or a lawyer, what have you, they're paying a firm. And regardless of whether, I don't know, whether there's an audit or or they win a case or whatever it is that you're paying for the labor. There's some, even whether they're paying a percentage or what have you, of ad spend or some other model. The only model that I really ever ran into that was more traditional pay for performance would have been more often than not affiliate marketing. And that, that's a mixed bag onto itself. You've got to find the right publishers that are going to do right by you. You're paying an ad network. You're paying, you're paying the publishers that are publishing, the material that are getting their commission. You're paying someone on your side to work on the overall project, to be putting out offers and doing whatever. So now there's like 3 mouths to feed in the process. If you can find the right, the right commission built in and the right publishers that will, have the right consumers to put your offers in front of, a lot of things to go wrong. So knowing that, a lot of risk in a lot of those older models, certainly lots of businesses making lots of money, running different marketing campaigns like these. But, for as many that work, there's certainly a percentage that fail or that have poor performance where it's not really a good return on the ad spend at all. Sometimes a significant loss. So you created Klickly to create a new road, a new path forward. What does that look like?
Yeah. So we call Klickly a commerce engine. And the reason we do that is because we use a lot of tech, a lot of data, and a lot of insights to really go and get sales for our customers. That's our goal, and that's the whole existence of our being. And the reason that's our goal versus we're going to show pretty pictures everywhere or whatever, is the model in which we charge, which is, as you said, based on sales. It's pure performance. And so that was the platform that we set out to build. That is what we built. Klickly at its very core is that commerce engine. We are essentially an advertising platform, but with the real goal to drive actual performance for a brand. We have 2 major differentiators, really 3. The first is, of course, that business model, which is that the brand, there's no real expensive setup fee at all. They're just paying when we get them a sale. It's very simple. By the way, a commission set by the brand. So we'll get into that later, but that's also, I think, very different. So that's the first. The second differentiator is kind of cool. We have really seen that when you streamline the checkout process, the sales go up. And so what we've created is this ability for consumers out there, once we're promoting our brand's products, when consumers see our ads, they actually have the ability to buy within them if they so choose. They don't have to, but they can buy in the ad. That's the second big differentiator.
Some people might go right to the site to make sure that they feel comfortable, but others, the same way that they might buy from an Instagram ad today, they're going to buy right from the ad.
Exactly right. Yep. Awesome. And then the third differentiator is more just logistical, kind of in a housekeeping way, but it's great. The idea of the third differentiator is that it's super easy, meaning you don't have to have a huge technical team to make it happen. It's great if you have an SI, they can set Klickly up for you. It'll be great and streamlined for them. But if you don't, and you don't have an agency at all, it's totally fine, because you're actually able to get Klickly set up in under 30 minutes without touching code.
And is that regardless of what platform they're on? Or are you basically getting all the data you need from their e-com?
Yeah, I'm speaking specifically to Magento brands, given Perfect. The Magento context of us. But
absolutely.
So, and certainly also the case with other platforms like Shopify, Shopify Plus, etc. But yeah, so for a Magento brand coming on, it takes about 15 to 30 minutes to sign up. It's 3 steps. The first step is an account creation. The second step is you load your products that you want us to promote. All this happens by like clicking boxes, right? No product feeds necessary, nothing. We auto-generate the ads ourselves. So you don't even have to come to us with creative. We pull it directly from your site and create it for you.
So it's kind of like remarketing, where it's going to pull whichever products it's supposed to pull at that point, and put them right into the ads. And in an imperfect, but it's dynamic.
Yep. And then that third step is what I alluded to earlier. It's that setting the commission step. So the brand actually goes into step 3, and they have a little toggle up and down, and on that lever, they can toggle it, the commission up to as high as 100 if they want to make a donation.
Yeah.
And as far down to 1%. Now,
naturally, we have some guiders.
Yeah, exactly.
If you do 1%, we probably might not show you that much, but
right. Well, and it's kind of that. It just allows every brand to choose whatever's comfortable for them, because every brand is unique and they all have different margins and different needs and different strategies. Yeah. But I will note that if brands set 1, 2, 3%, they think they're all clever. They're like, I'm going to game Klickly. The reality is it's not incentivizing for our engine, and our algorithms will not prioritize them highly.
Right. And by all means, we're not naive to think that, as Cooper mentioned earlier, Klickly is the end all be all, and it's the only thing that they'll use. I think part of being able to select that commission is understanding the brand strategy, right? Yes. And every brand's going to be different. Every brand's using a different channel. Every brand has different goals. And being able to pull those different levers on our side, at least, and for the brands, allows us to certainly be an additive.
Yep.
With all that in mind, is there a minimum size for a brand to really fit into your metric, to have enough data to work with, or to really be able to leverage the platform the way that you've designed it?
I like how you went directly there to the data piece, because that's correct. There's no catch to Klickly really, because it's semi-risk free. But if there is a quote unquote catch, it's that, well, number one, we are invite only, so we're very thoughtful about who we work with, because it's a very attractive proposition, we'll say, right? Risk-free, performance-based advertising, like kind of who wouldn't want that in a way? So we are invite only. So brands do have to apply or come through preferred partners. But once they do make it onto the Klickly platform, we do need them to be a certain size. And Darren can give you a little more insight onto why.
Yeah. So all that we ran is ran through a machine learning algorithm that we've created. And naturally, it's a machine, right? A machine needs data to form logic. In order to form that logic, we need plenty of data in order to actually scale and show success. Otherwise, if somebody came on and they're just starting out and they have 1,000 site visits, I will go out on a limb and say it's not to say that Klickly wouldn't work. We'd probably just be months and months and months and months down the line for us to finally get anything to work off of.
You can't build a predictive model of like what type of consumer likes certain products if that certain product belongs to a brand with no data.
Right.
Yeah. So there's no persona. There's no persona that.
Right.
That's a job.
Well, and keep in mind, Robert, we are taking risk day one for every brand who joins Klickly. We are buying ads out of our own pocket for our brands, essentially. So we are paying up front. Yeah.
So where are these ads being displayed? Talking of expense to your team.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So definitely a great question for us, going back to what we mentioned earlier about bot traffic and fraudulence and things of that nature. For us, we're commission-based, right? We need to get a sale in order to actually make money. And so logically, we need to have premium placements. For us, we have a pretty extensive reach, about 25 million plus large publications right now. Probably most of what you can think of off the top of your head: Vogue, Cosmo, Allure, ESPN, Men's Fitness. And again, going back to that, we're commission-based. We need sales, so we need proper placements in order for people to actually go there. They're real humans. There's real interaction. There's actual intent. And a lot of the times those placements fare well off of a strategic. Of course, we're strategic about it, right? We're not going to show some makeup on Men's Fitness. Right.
Well, there are various consumers out there, so
yeah, you're right.
I'd be interested in the testing on that, especially maybe around around Valentine's Day or what have you. Does the perfume sell better to an ESPN audience that needs to buy it then, lest they get locked out?
That's funny. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's always interesting when things work a little differently than you think. But no, that makes perfect sense that you need different placements that are going to work with different inventory that you have
right.
in your network.
And that are fairly premium. Again, we really avoid buying anything that isn't 100% human, because buying remnant inventory, you're not going to see results there. So we just don't touch it.
Yeah. And a lot of it is that simplicity, right? It is being ran by a machine learning algorithm. And therefore, we're kind of taking care of those understandings, consumer interactions, A/B testing, things that are going to drive conversions.
Right.
Again, on our side, or even a brand or an SR, whoever's managing Klickly, as it relates to daily management, right? And making adjustments in that fashion, there's not much needed. That's kind of the cherry on top for Klickly, and the beauty of what we've created is, really you're just kind of logging in and looking at the success that we've brought to your brand in terms of the numbers and looking at everything else.
So shoppable ads, I'm still thinking about that in general. So if obviously that's very easily for you to track so that you get paid on that performance. They click the ad, they have an option to buy. I imagine that they're just buying the one product in whatever quantity. So it's probably a pretty quick process. A one-click kind of a checkout. They don't need to go through all kinds of other pages to get through it. Do you see a good lift from that compared to if maybe you were to try to bring them through to the customer's site?
Well, yeah, but it also completely depends on the person. So I would say, like we say, it's like icing on the cake. There's a certain demographic of people out there who want an impulse purchase. Then there's a certain demographic out there of consumers who might be interested in the product, and they'll go a little way down the journey, but maybe they don't want to completely buy in the ad. And then there's a whole set of people, consumers out there who don't want any of that. They just want to go to the store per usual, right?
Yeah.
What's interesting is those three types of consumers, the ratios are changing, right? In the past, everybody was like, I'm going to go to my desktop and do a really considered long-term buying consideration process. And I'm going to spend a month researching the purchase and blah, blah, blah. There's still some people who do that. My brother's one of them. At the other end of the spectrum is the portion of the population, and to be honest, they're usually like Gen Z and millennials, who just want it quickly. We grew up with credit cards that would refund us for anything we wanted. So we just call the bank. And I have no patience and no time. So I'm like, I'm going to impulse purchase this. If I decide I don't want it later, I might return it. Otherwise, I just, get my money back. Or maybe I keep it. Who cares? Like, to me, I don't care.
Isn't that kind of why you made?
Yeah, exactly.
I may or may not be trying to convince my wife tonight that shoppable ads are very high risk and, that they're not safe, because I got to cut out those impulse buys right now.
And to be honest, that's actually why we created Klickly. I was on HuffPost on my phone. I was scrolling through a page, reading some article. In the midst of it, this ad pops up for a pair of shoes. And I was like, damn, you got me. Like, I do want those shoes. Fine, let's do it. And so I clicked on them to buy them. But then, it pops up to the new page, the new browser window. And then it's navigating me, and the little blue line across the top is like the nav bar is just going so slow. And it's like 3 seconds later. Very irritating. That's why they need jet rails, by the way. Little plug there, but true. So that process is just so painful. And then you're in the car and you're doing multiple. Some people will do that and will continue to, but the portion of the population now, and growing faster and faster, they don't want to do that anymore. The number of millennials and more Gen Z who will refuse to navigate to a second page is growing. So as this larger and larger portion of the population, who, by the way, next year will control over 40% of the wallet, as they get more and more ADD, they're not going to go to a second page. So brands need something to combat that. And we hope that we are that technology. But as of now, to answer your question, whether the consumer buys in our ad unit or clicks back to the site doesn't matter to us, doesn't really matter to the brand. It's just a cool additive feature that will become more and more important.
And they buy it through one of your ads. You take care of the merchant services and you pay the brand for that order. And if they go right to the site, it's a traditional checkout, and you have some mechanism for tracking that. So you get your pay for performance, taken care of, that you're profitable.
Yeah, and just to be clear, like the purchase order and all the data from the consumer goes straight into the back end of Magento. You treat it, it looks and feels like it happened on your site. You happen to know that it didn't, but you should be able to treat it as business as usual, nothing funky or weird.
It's basically just like having a different, maybe a different payment method. So instead of having taken the order through traditional credit card, it came through PayPal or Amazon Pay. In this case, it came through Klickly. I'm a little bit more complicated than that, but at the end of the day, for the person, for the admin that's in there fulfilling the order, that's the net result.
Yep. Exactly. Yeah. And then the difference, of course, with us is unlike a Amazon marketplace, we're always going to give the brands their consumers' data. Always, always, always. The brand owns the data. They know the consumer. They can email them, etc.
And having all that in mind, would you consider Klickly an additional sales channel, the way that merchants feel the need to be in some marketplaces today or other places, that you're basically another sales channel that they can take advantage of to supplement and grow in a more unique way, as opposed to just looking at it as a competitor to other advertising?
Absolutely. I think that's overall where Klickly is heading as well. We have solely owned and operated Klickly sites and things of that nature that we can leverage. But overall, being able to have that external feature that, again, is just that additive. And I think over the years, and I say years, and I mean maybe like 1 or 2, maybe 3, I'm not sure, but it's just going to be a norm, right? It's already starting to continue to be a norm through Instagram, even through some of our ad. It's just going to be that norm. And if you have that available, it's an additional sales channel that I feel like a brand should use, especially with how risk adverse it is.
Yep.
And so far you've been making a good push with the Magento community. Sounds like you've got some other platforms that you're targeting. In essence, you're going after the places where you're finding brands of the right size, the right fit for your particular offering, right? That's sort of what's driving your partnerships around those things.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the Magento ecosystem is really exciting to us. We're actually new to Magento. So we are, as I mentioned, invite only still, but yet Magento is really appealing and enticing to us. One of the newer platforms that we've integrated into and have a partnership with. So yeah, we're all about Magento and the partners in the ecosystem. It's a fantastic place to do business.
And thinking about that and the average Magento merchant, I know we've talked a little bit about size. Is there a number of SKUs, a number of products that typically works for this type of marketing, where you're going to serve up the right ads to the right people, the right place, the right time? Back to those algorithms and machine learning.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that's definitely the goal and the idea behind it, is that we do pick the right thing to get to the right person at the right time.
Right.
And then in terms of number of SKUs, yes and no. It absolutely works with 1 or 2 SKUs. For sure, it will. However, like in the world, consumers like lots of options. So if we have lots of options, it definitely makes it easier for us. So when we see those consumers out there, maybe if you have, 20 SKUs instead of just 1, we have 20 different opportunities to find slightly different consumers, right, to buy your products. So it definitely helps us to have brands who have probably at least 5 or 6 SKUs. I will tell you, almost 80% of our brands, when they sign up with Klickly, they choose to promote their entire catalog. And that definitely boosts the performance.
That's interesting. Diving right in. Makes sense to me. I like to ask technology companies where they got their names, how that came about. Klickly seems like a more obvious name than some, but I'm sure it wasn't easy finding an available name that worked. How did you come to it? Were there other things that were really high up in the running? Or did this just, fall in your lap? Or
I'm actually curious too.
So funnily enough, my mom is actually a writer, a published author, and she's very good with words. And I was telling her about the company, and I was telling her about like a huge long list of names, all in the same family that I wanted.
Was she getting it?
And,
was she following along?
Yeah, she was following along.
Okay.
Totally. Yeah. She also teaches at Duke University. So she's a brainy gal. And she was like, so what's the main thing you want people to do and kind of get from this? I was like, well, like they're clicking and buying quickly. Like they're just clicking quickly. She was like, what about Klickly? I was like, aha. And it was very similar to every other thing on our list. I think we had like Clickerize and Clickify and like all these other things. But yeah, and I thought, what a cool thing. Like, let's make a portmanteau out of two words that I just said. And beautifully, I actually had the idea for the name and the general concept way before I started the company. And then I did R&D on it for a couple of years. And finally, then I raised some money and decided, let's do this again while I was running that first company. But the beauty is, back when we had the idea, .com was available, all patents, trademarks, all of that, actually incredibly easy. So
wow.
I paid $1.99 on GoDaddy for that domain.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's not easy. Getting harder and harder. Like we say, the early days of the internet, everything was available. Now, not so much. That's pretty awesome. And now I know what episode of the podcast I'm going to be tagging for Mother's Day.
Exactly.
Okay, big shout out there.
Tech company.
Yeah. Yes. No, I don't know where I'd be without Mom. So yeah, very, very cool stuff. Very glad that I asked, as always. There's always a backstory. So, really fantastic having both of you on today. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd love to share on the tail end here?
Yeah, I mean, as we get into the Magento ecosystem, I think it's a beautiful place for us to play because the tech available there is so robust, right? So we feel very at home. But I definitely would say if brands don't have, and it doesn't have to be Klickly, but if they don't have a real data forward, tech forward solution that gives them this kind of risk-free, performance-based opportunity, get one. Because CPAs are only going up. Facebook's throttling here and there. It's just becoming so hard. And I'm very biased, but I do want brands to have that extra edge because we see so much of the market being flooded by these like really big companies who are just paying up the wazoo to get in front of everyone's eyeballs. And the good brands aren't winning necessarily. And I want the good brands with the good products to win. And that's what we're all about. So that's our big push into the Magento ecosystem. How can we add value to and really promote the Magento brands that are doing such cool things and need more visibility? Be they our small, $1-2 million a year brand, or our more robust, like $60-100 million a year brands. Everybody can use a little bit more visibility.
Yes.
Fantastic. Well, really, really a pleasure to have both of you on today. Hopefully we'll have you on in the future here about some of the ramp up and maybe, I don't know, you might keep the platform invite only forever, but, it's going to be an interesting next couple of years, I'm sure. Well, to our listeners, as always, thanks for tuning in. Feel free to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you have questions, if you have thoughts, if you have suggestions for a future episode, you can reach us on LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook @JetRails, or directly at jetrails.com. Thanks and happy selling.